Okay, part of people. It's Friday night. We survived spring forward. I think we did at least. We'll maybe discuss that and see how our bodies reacted as we've aged to the spring forward and stupid time change bullshittery. Almost Agreement at gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and YouTube. Go to almostagreement.com. Check out all the cool stuff we got there. Go to your favorite podcast provider. Give us a friend, follow, like, share, whatever your podcast provider does. 5-star review. Text it to your friends. That's a good way to share us so that your friends don't have a choice but finding us. A few more back and forth. I got an interesting mailer today because I'm on the mailing list for Fuck Everybody. So we'll talk about that. Spring break in Knox County and UT this week, so the civic calendar was a little slow, but there was still some cool, interesting stuff that happened. A bunch of money that came in that's coming into town, which then rolls into some weird sub fight. So I'll see if I can't break that down in a reasonable manner for everybody here in a second. So anyway, we're almost agreement. We're going to do a show. Here we go. Hey, buddy.
Hey.
I don't know where you want to start. I had a couple of teasers in there. A bunch of money came into town for some...
Whatever floats your boat, mate.
I don't know. It's interesting. Like, what if I understand it correctly? So I don't remember what the name of the grant is, but it's the biggest... It's potentially, nobody has gone through the records to be 100% certain on the fact, but it is potentially the biggest grant the city of Knoxville has ever received in a single grant.
Was this the reapplication for the bridge?
No,
okay.
That one's still floating around. And American Cannon says that since we got this other giant grant, that should make us look better for that grant. But this grant is basically, it's a federal something that's kind of...
I like to revitalize East Knoxville?
Yeah.
Okay. I did see a story about that.
It's kind of like we had urban renewal was the PR name for it back in the 50s, 60s, or whatever. So when they put James White Parkway in and really cut, so I don't know this, the general, the broad strokes, the TLDR, since we were talking about that a second ago, on urban renewal. A lot of cities did this across the nation, including Knoxville. When Eisenhower's interstate system came in, what a lot of cities did was they went into the poor neighborhoods, mostly black neighborhoods, and kicked everybody out of their houses so they could build the interstate through there.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times what was left over of those poor neighborhoods was squeezed up against the interstate and then separated from the rest of town. Our version was, at least part of our version was James White Parkway, which, it's a hard line between East Knoxville and downtown Knoxville because of James White Parkway. And so part of this grant is supposed to help alleviate that. Don't know exactly what that means and what exactly is coming from that. Some greenways, some other stuff. There is supposed to be a greenway going in that's going to lead right to the baseball stadium, because that's important for East Knoxvillians or whatnot. But nonetheless, it's an interesting little whatever. It's kind of I don't know exactly what the process was to get said grant money, but it's all of our tax money that went to the federal government, and the federal government's given back out for reason A, B, or C.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm going to be okay with it. I don't really I don't know the ins and outs of the hows and what the process was to get it in the first place, but we have it now, and hopefully we'll do a good job. There's a little bit of a brouhaha beginning about it because there's the $100 million not reparations that the city things promised it's a city ordinance a couple years ago.
No.
It was pre the last election, so it was pre-23. But a number of people that were running in 23, like incumbents running in 23, one of the hits against them from especially the Herrera-run Republican slate that was in the city races was that person voted for reparations. Remember hearing any of that craziness?
No, don't recall.
So basically what it is the city basically said we're going to put effort into getting $100 million to put into our East Knoxville community. Basically, it's really all they were doing. It wasn't the city of Knoxville was going to take anything out of the city of Knoxville coffers. There is some amount of match to it where, like, for every $10 million in grant dollars, the city will kick in a certain amount. That's not nothing, but it's not significant against, like, it's not like 100, or it's not like 80 of the 100 million. It's like 10 of the 100 million or something like that.
Right.
So anyway, it's that misnomer of the assigned misnomer of reparations that was put on it that made it a big kind of election stink a couple of years back. But
it's coming from state funds, federal funds.
Federal funds.
Okay.
But so like again, like they just got it, and there's like a very loose blueprint of what they're planning to do it. And again, if I understood it correctly when I was looking into it, is James White Parkway when it crosses on the south side, because James White Parkway dies right across the river, and I guess TDOT gave up. So apparently, over the last like 20 years of that project, they'd started and stopped it like 6 times. Where they were planning on continuing it all the way down to Maryville or whatever. That was the original plan.
Right.
And, the homeowners down there, they couldn't get the people out. They couldn't figure out, like, they just couldn't do whatever they needed to do to go the rest of the way down. And then they'd quit, and then 5 years later, they'd try again. TDOT, the state was trying to, and they kept just kind of getting too much resistance and giving up. And so I guess a couple of years ago, TDOT finally said, fuck it, and gave the land either to the city of Knoxville or what land they had acquired, they gave back, or they sold to the city of Knoxville for pennies on the dollar or whatever.
I thought they were trying to turn some kind of park right there.
Right, so there is a park
parking there.
There is a park on the very end.
Okay, there is. So.
And so it's like right under the bridge for, I want to say Baxter, but I know that's wrong. Woodlawn?
I think so, yeah.
To Leeward, not to Leeward Gardens. Anyway, that was the apartment complex. I lived in down there for a while.
Right.
But right under that bridge, so like the very end, so what was the exit ramp is now the only way you can go, but if you go straight, they turn those lanes into parking. So there's like one lane going straight in, and then it's parking along it, and then you turn around and come back out the other way.
Moody,
good job, nice. And so that's down there now, but if I understood correctly, part of this new thing is they're going to shut down one direction. So they're going to put traffic over to one side, so it goes both ways on what is currently the northbound side.
Okay.
They're going to put so traffic goes both ways on one side, and then all the other side of it, they're going to turn into green space. And
wouldn't be against it.
I mean, it doesn't have the traffic to need 2 lanes both directions. So,
and I've never seen it too heavy, but you do have a lot of people that get off right there just to get over to like Chapman. If you didn't want to get off at the previous exit to get over to Chapman.
But. Yeah, and so I don't know. We'll see how we'll see exactly how that goes, because there's a couple logistical issues that I could see already kind of at play. But I mean, there's a whole stretch of it. Most of it has a city street that runs parallel to it all the way down too. On the east side of it, yeah, on the east side of it, like if you're on Moody, you can turn onto the ramp to get onto it is a street, and it keeps going straight, and then it splits off and goes onto it, and then it goes, and you can go at like highway speeds, but then it's still a city street kind of thing that runs all the way down next to it until the next bridge, which is the Imes exit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then from there, you can, if you go straight on that side road, that is the on-ramp to crossing the bridge to get in to Knoxville proper. Anyway, a bunch of money. It's coming. We'll see. But like apparently the other part of it too is like all the projects they're doing with this money were like the next 10, 15 years worth of projects that now that this money is coming from this is now going to be shoved in the next like 5 years. So it should be pretty quick now that the money's there that we start seeing some action out of this. So that'll be something fun and exciting. The Gloria Johnson bill is still floating around. Getting pushback from the Republicans. Apparently, there are a few people.
Which bill is this?
The can't run for 2 seats bill.
Okay, gotcha.
Apparently, there are some people whom currently hold 2 offices in the state of Tennessee.
What?
I didn't catch any names, but apparently, in some of the rural counties, their state legislature and local school board member is the same person. Or something of those, some combination thereof.
All right.
Or a county commissioner and state senator. And so not just running for 2 offices, but holding 2 offices. And guess what party they're in?
Democrats.
Wrong. They're all Republicans.
Shit.
All Republicans. The handful of those that exist, and there's not many, but the handful of those exist are all Republicans. And so whilst the Republican supermajority wants to take the opportunity to hate on Gloria because that's what they're good at. It's the only thing they're really good at. The chunks of their supermajority are not a big fan of this, and so now they got to play the game of, well, do we stick it to Gloria, or Do we protect our people that hold both school board and state legislative seats? I mean, realistically,
I don't think they're too worried about taking off the couple.
Right. Because it's not like those seats aren't going to get filled by other Republicans, whichever one that person keeps or gives up. I would think.
Like, hey, just resign, let your brother do it. There's only like 12 of you in that town anyway.
Right, exactly. A county of 27,000 people.
Yeah.
There aren't that many who give a shit enough to do anything, so there's that. The other one that's going on statewide, which is I think is a bunch of fuckery. Not that there's not a bunch of fuckery going on. Memphis, after that FedEx guy got beat to death by the cops.
Yeah, I saw a little story about that.
So Memphis had made some ordinance for the Memphis Police Department, who are employees of the city of Memphis, not the state of Tennessee. City of Memphis Police Department. They changed some ordinance and rules for how they're supposed to operate. Basically, what I call beyond the ticket stops. I can't remember. There's a technical term for it, but it's basically that busted taillight, they pull you over. They don't really care about the busted taillight. There's something else there that's their way to initiate contact.
Yeah.
Because they're keeping an eye on you because you are suspected to be a dealer or something like that. And, this one time your license plate lights out. That's our chance to pull you over. Then we can search the car. Then we can do this. Then we can do this. We can do that. Which apparently on the FedEx guy, it was one of those stops. It was something that...
Yeah, I can't remember exactly.
It was reckless driving or something like that. That the dash cam video is like, no, it's not. It was literally just a profile stop. It's really what it was. Well, I mean, it's realistically what it was. And all the Memphis cops are black anyway, but it doesn't make it untrue. But it was a profile stop. And then the shit went down and this dude ends up dead. And Memphis said, and apparently the Memphis ordinance that they put in place was just like, hey, we're going to not pull people over for these things anymore. If you pull them over for speeding and that's on there, sure, write them a ticket for both. But you're not pulling them over for a busted taillight or, whatever. It's got to be something. It's got to be something that's in the immediate public safety, basically, for you to pull somebody over. You have to have a good reason to initiate contact, which I think is a good rule, personally. But the state of Tennessee is like, no, Memphis, you don't get to do that. Which, in my opinion, is a couple layers of fuckery. But I don't know. It's interesting. To me, it brings the question. It brings into full focus the question of where is the authority supposed to lie? And what it seems like, at least in the state of Tennessee, is all of it is in the state of Tennessee. We don't want federal intervention, and we don't want local intervention. The state of Tennessee government wants control over everything in the state of Tennessee. They don't want the local governments to have any control, and they don't want the federal government to have any control.
I thought it was the city or the county that was changing it. I don't know. I think I just saw the headline that said like reforms that were made right after that. I think Tyree Nichols, I think was his name.
Yeah.
That like reforms that were made after that are now being reversed or
right. Memphis made the reforms, and the state of Tennessee is writing law to make it so they can't. So it's basically saying, the no local government can restrict a police officer's duty that isn't that can restrict the authority of a police department beyond the Constitution of the state of Tennessee or something like that. It's like really specific. Like basically, the city of Knoxville Police Department is the state of Tennessee Police Department for the jurisdiction of the city of Knoxville. It's the way they're writing it. Is that no police departments in the state have any autonomy. They only answer to the state and how the state wants them to work.
That's already passed, or that's
in work. It's going. I think it's passed the House and Senate. It's waiting for Governor Lee, which in the state of Tennessee means it's already passed.
Right. I saw a newer one. I don't know where it's at because it had to do with city, county law enforcement shall work with federal on, I guess, and efforts for like immigration and whatnot. I guess basically, if you come across someone in your job of being law enforcement, I think you shall, I think, tell.
You are obliged to report a person of lacking documentation to immigration authorities.
Something like that.
Yeah. That's dumb. I don't know. I go back and forth on that one. I'm not sure where I'm on the on the immigration conversation. I'm not sure where I am because the public conversation is wrong.
Well, part of it, I
Because
think it's just, I mean, we talk about throwing like more and more things onto teachers. That's just throwing more and more things onto local and state law enforcement. It's like we have federal immigration.
yeah, but those
We have ICE. And,
but they fucking want it. I mean, that's part of the problem is the police departments want it. It's their oversight, whether it's a city or state, depending on where they are.
well, that's the weird thing. That's what kind of what Texas was running into when they told like federal authorities they weren't, and they passed like a state law that said the state could then now do it. And it's like,
I mean,
immigration
right, with
immigration
Texas,
laws isn't a state thing. You don't have the jurisdiction
Texas
to
is a little
enforce
bit-
immigration laws.
Texas is a little bit different given the fact that they are a border state, and I'm not
Right.
saying that I'm not saying that they have more legal or less legal right to do X, Y, or Z than
Right.
than other states, but their situation is a little different than ours.
Right.
We do have plenty of people who get moved into Tennessee for one reason or another who don't have the legal authority to be in this country or whatever the fuck we're going to call it.
Right.
But it's I don't know. Like I like
could see
'cause it
maybe
seems
if
like the sheriff's office here in town. I'm sorry, but like the sheriff's office here in town, both I think it started under Jimmy, and Spangler has continued it. This G37 or whatever, G237 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's basically that's the sheriff's office had opted into. If they have an interaction with somebody, if they detain, if Knox County Sheriff's Office detains anybody, and for any reason they run their paperwork, and if their paperwork includes, they will detain that person until ICE comes and gets them.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's that G237 or whatever it is. And there's been then like constitutional arguments about it, state constitutional arguments about whether they're allowed to do it or not. But my point in that is that it seems like, at least for the Knox County Sheriff's Office, they want that. They opted into doing that. And so it seems like some of the law enforcement agencies want that because there's probably funding. There's probably a funding. There's either direct funding from immigration, or they can request additional state funding, and they could justify a request for more funding because they need more X, Y, or Z to handle this new group of people that they're detaining.
Right. They can charge them rent at the
Right. Certainly, the jail is going to ask for more money because they have to house more people. And so, because then that more money or more need equals more officers equals more money, more officers, it's that perverse incentive things that I talk about all the time. Like it's not whether or not Sheriff Spangler wants to do the right thing or not. There's a political aim for him because we're a very Republican area, that it looks good for him politically, or at least he thought it did. That's why I think that's part of why he did it. But I think there's a professional, functional gain for him, whether it's not directly financially to him personally, but for his department. There's something to it that he wants it. And so it seems to me that a lot of police departments want more.
Yeah.
Because that gets them the excuse to ask for more, and then blah, 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 blah. Because Memphis Police Department didn't like the city ordinances when the city council and the mayor's office, or the city council of Memphis dropped it on them. The mayor at the time said he refused to make the police department do it. That guy got termed out, or at least got beat in the upcoming election. The new guy wins the election, says we're absolutely doing these new ordinances, and this police department will follow these rules. And so where there was at least some divide in Memphis a couple of years ago about this particular topic, the government of Memphis is very united about it. The only people in Memphis that don't like it is the Memphis Police Department, because that ties their hands from tactics or whatever you want to call it they've used to catch criminals in the past.
Yeah.
And so, it goes back to like that whole, like, Republicans don't believe in small government. At least Tennessee Republicans believe in Tennessee state government, period. They don't believe in local control. They believe in state control. And so they do believe in small government when it comes to the federal government, but they don't believe in small government when it comes to state government. Which, to be fair, that's kind of where I'm at on it. Like, I think the state of Tennessee should have more control and power over the state of Tennessee than the federal government does. But I also think that Knox County should have more control and power than the state of Tennessee does, as you work your way down. That's my take on it.
Right.
But I'm comfortable with that premise. I'm not trying to shoehorn a broader small government speech, but only when it applies. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But yeah, so that one's, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's just dumb. I don't understand. Like, I just don't understand the premise. It's like how many state elected officials let whether whether in the House or the state Senate, how many have a population, a municipal population that they are part of over 500,000? Like 6
in the state,
maybe probably more than that. But it's really like there's 100 in the House. There's 100 total members in the House. There's 100 total members in the House. I'd say maybe 20 of them come out of Memphis, Nashville, Knoxville, Chattanooga, Tri-Cities.
Yeah.
And it's like, so those 20 who actually live and work and preside over, for lack of a better word, the more urban parts of the state are getting superseded by the 80 that live out in the country.
Yeah.
Seems kind of dumb to me.
Like, we had 5 people move to town. Like, we're getting overrun.
But it seems kind of dumb to me because it's like, okay, sure, you go out into fucking like rural Cock County or something like that. Sure, I would say probably the majority of that population, except for the fucking meth heads, probably get along with the sheriff's office out there. They probably do think most of the riffraff is getting handled by their police department in a more appropriate way. It's not the same as fucking downtown Memphis.
Right.
It's not functionally the same place. It's not the same people. It's not the same demographic. None of it's the same functionally. And so what you think of your Cookeville Police Department has zero in common with the Memphis Police Department. Functionally.
Yeah, they still have their issues.
I'm not saying they don't,
right.
But they also, the Cookeville Police Department has like 37 whole black people in their jurisdiction that they have to deal with, as opposed to all of Memphis.
Okay.
I think there's it's hard not to assume that there is some racial undertone to how this thing got into where it was in the first place, because you don't see.
I think they were responding at the time to police reform that has been an issue for past 5-10 years. New York had their whole stop and frisk, so that kind of added the whole kind of policing debate throughout the U.S.
I think
what's acceptable as far as kind of we were talking about pulling people over, that initial.
Right, I think the George Floyd thing was probably the biggest. Was it the Ferguson, Missouri?
There's been multiple.
But the Ferguson, Missouri, and the George Floyd one really kind of, I think, flipped it over, and then this one, being a very local, specific one in Memphis, flipped it over. I mean, I think it's like again,
Colorado recently it was like the first time it was a paramedic that was found guilty of. I think it might have been like gross negligence, maybe.
A couple of these, there was a couple of people at least lost their jobs in Memphis. There were like the 5 officers involved all got fired. A couple of them got criminal charges, but there was some firings of fire and EMS that were part of this incident as well.
Or maybe it was Memphis. I was thinking there was also a case in Colorado that the paramedic had gotten for like gross negligence, basically.
I mean, I guess to me, it's like the way the state is approaching it is like is police departments need to police themselves, and that I guess is where it seems full on retarded. I'll use that word. I have chosen for recent history to stop using that word often, especially on air, but to underscore how dumb it is. I think the way the state is addressed, I think it's beyond just the state government's part of it, but I think it's just the general theme of it. I've bitched about it on the show, and you give me sideways looks about it all the time. This assumption, this kind of blanket assumption that cops are good, is, I think, problematic. I think it's an issue. I think it puts us. I think at least. Teaches us to let our guard down around them, and I don't think I don't know. I don't have any particular personal negative experiences, but to me it seems pretty clear that I've made the argument many a times over, is that it is an us and them mentality from police departments. You have a badge or you don't, and that's how they treat it. Now, on an individual one-on-one level, maybe not, but when it gets into the political inner workings of how the police department engages with the community and stuff, that it is very much an us and them. And it has been for decades in almost all police departments all over this country. And that idea needs to get killed very badly. That we are a special subclass of people because we are officers. And not sub as in below, actually sub as in above the rest of you guys, because we have the right to do X, Y, and Z. And I think that's a problem. I think local oversight, local non-partisan, non-political oversight of police departments is a very important thing. And binding oversight insofar as, like, which that's the thing they did last year in the state, was took that away from Memphis and Nashville to make them follow our Knoxville model, which is a much weaker model, because the Knoxville model is, yeah, we can talk and we can start investigations and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, the board's only suggesting what should happen. So if you're an officer and you're involved in an incident and it comes to the attention of, and they go through the whole process and they find that you acted inappropriately for that and whatever, they write a recommendation to the chief and say, hey, chief, here's our recommendation. But it's still up to the Chief Noel and his internal investigation and however he wants to handle that situation and that officer. As a suggestion, I think it should be a binding thing. I think it's like, we found through our investigation that this officer was grossly negligent or intentionally harmful in this situation, and this action needs to happen. Whether it's firing or he needs to go on probation or he needs to go to a retraining course, whatever it is. But our police oversight committee feels like this is the correct course of action.
Right.
And that's a binding course of action, not a suggestion to. And then KPD can go like, maybe. And Memphis and Nashville had that, and that got taken away last year. Or something of the sort.
I don't think even in that, you still got the risk of that, kind of taking more power than you.
Sure, absolutely. That's absolutely a risk, but I would err on
someone that also, sees just as adamantly of the us versus them, and
sure. But theoretically, if you're on the oversight board, who's the us? If I'm on the oversight board and I'm hardcore into the us versus them mentality, sure, it's gonna be always be the cop's fault or whatever. But like, who's the us that I'm theoretically advocating for?
Public.
I wouldn't see that as a bad thing. Unless I'm like advocating for, the violent gang to keep their territory, and every time the cops come in and try to break the violent gang up, that I'm making some excuse to bust the cops or trying to bust people who are in the middle of a violent gang war.
No, I'm just saying that would then, if you have someone just as adamantly strong in that kind of opinion of the us versus them,
that it would reinforce it with the police department as well?
Right.
Okay, that's what you're saying. That's a possibility, but at least you'd have a body that's, I don't know.
No, I think there should be, I don't know what they're called, like police boards or police
oversight. It's usually like
right.
Municipal Oversight Committee or some shit like that.
Should have more public on them. I know the recent John Oliver had an interesting one about medical boards, and kind of that same thing. Like most of the state medical examiner boards are run by doctors.
Right.
And he had, showed up.
Half of them work in the hospitals all of them work in hospitals that are the board oversees.
All right. And it's kind of like, have a lot of the same issues that they have in police departments, where someone gets disciplined, and it kind of goes into a little file, and they're kind of given the option to either like resign or get fired. Of course, if they're wise enough, they're like, okay, I'm going to resign, and then they go to another state, another city,
right.
or whatever,
or even stay in the same state and go to another hospital that board still oversees. But it's like, well.
Oh, so I was jumping back into police for that one.
Okay.
But yeah, the same thing happens with the state medical examiner boards.
Yeah,
it was crazy. One guy he was interviewing, and the guy was, why he even sat down for a fucking like local news interview, I'm not even sure, but he was scheduled to go to prison like in like 3 or 4 weeks, and he was still practicing.
In his mind, he didn't do anything wrong in the first place. That would be my guess on how he justified doing the interview.
He had already been found guilty.
So he's still saying, I didn't do anything wrong in this. This is a bullshit thing. So this is a chance for me to go out in public and tell the public my side of the story.
I mean, he didn't tell the whole story. I think the story was more about.
I'm just saying that would be
right.
that would be my guess at why he sat down for an interview, which
Maybe.
Clearly wasn't. That's the problem. And I'm not gonna. It's not John Oliver. Everybody does it. That's the problem with those kind of things anyway. Like, that's my experience when I deal with WBAR. So you sit down and hang out with them for like an hour, and you have 3 minutes of a 7-minute segment that's actually quotes from you with no context. And, I don't know. Again, I didn't see what you were talking about, but I could see how that guy goes and sits down with John Oliver, or whoever, talks to him at length, and feels like he left that interview. It's like, yeah, I got my side of the story out. And then the thing runs, and it's like, this idiot's on his way to jail, and he's still practicing. That's how I assume the story kind of framed him.
Basically.
It sounds like, yeah. And so it's like, well, yeah, like I said, I mean, I could imagine that he thought he was going to get his story out, and he didn't. And it's not.
Yeah, I don't see what the point of getting your story out at that point.
Appeals or something. I don't know. Because I don't know what the crime he committed was anyway. So it's a separate thing.
Basically, like sexual molestation while he had patients that were unconscious.
Oh damn.
Yeah. And he was awfully kind of cheery. Like it was. He's like you're going to prison in 3 or 4 weeks. He's like, yeah.
Whew. Yeah, I'm not trying to defend the guy. I'm just saying, like the mentality makes sense to me that he thinks he's gonna his side. He thinks he didn't do anything wrong, and so if he just gets to explain it, then people will understand.
Maybe.
I mean, a lot of people think that way. I think that way.
But it was kind of, they had kind of that same thing that almost all medical examiner boards, it's all doctors. There's no public on it, so there was the kind of push for that, and. A lot of them don't really have much teeth, or as far as, they'll make recommendations. And they talked about a lot of these people that, had files and had grievances brought against them. Like half the doctors in the state, were still had their licenses.
Yeah.
Even though, they were some where, multiple colleagues had said, this doctor is a threat to public safety.
Yeah.
Like, oh, is this person still practicing? Like, yeah.
It's like, well, okay, so back in the pandemic, when the wheels really started turning in the craziness for me getting into local politics stuff and paying attention to stuff, when I went down to that stupid 7-hour long fucking meeting because the reason I went, do you remember why I was there?
So when you were trying to join the
Knox County Health whatever thing, and the point was to have a civilian liaison or like a civilian member. That was the hole they were trying to fill.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who they picked, but she had been to medical school or she'd done some medical stuff. She was like an assistant in a practice or something like that. She wasn't a doctor, but she was in the medical field. And it's like, well, that's not really a citizen activist or whatever you want to call it in this board if they're in the field.
Yeah.
I'm just a guy who's out here trying to figure out what the fuck's going on in the world. I am the most logical choice if you want a civilian it's like, I'm going to ask the questions that people in Knoxville would ask if they had the opportunity. We don't need somebody who already knows the answers. Because I think, again, not to relitigate the pandemic craziness, but I think one of the biggest issues of the pandemic is that, I don't, it never felt like it was explained well enough. It never felt like it was a full explanation. It wasn't really understandable to lay people. You had to get it explained, and then you called somebody that might know the answers and stuff like that. That would have been that kind of was my take at the time, at least. It's like, if you can explain it to me so that I can understand it, then the public will understand it. That was kind of my mentality if I would have been assigned it. I'm glad I didn't. It was a 5-year gig. I'd still be doing the bullshit, and I'm glad I didn't get the job. Don't get me wrong. It was unpaid and bullshit, this, that, and the other. But that at the time, at least, I recall that was one of my thought processes. It was when I was having my little interview section or whatever, I was like, I don't understand what's going on, and you guys in the commission have more intel than I do, but this board that you're asking for a member for needs somebody who doesn't understand what's going on to help the people that do understand be able to explain it to the people that don't understand, because you're not doing a good job of that to me. Or I'm just an idiot, and I think they assumed the latter.
I mean, I doubt even if you got a job, that's not what your role would have been.
I mean, that's what I would have been doing. You know me, I would have gotten frustrated. We'd sit through a meeting, and it's like they're just talking over me. I'm like, oh, I don't understand. Right.
What was that big word you just said?
And I would and I would at least, I mean, in the back of the whole set was if I got on there and did that, I would get a little bit of public whatever, and I could get more people listening to the podcast. And I sure as shit, if I was on there, would talk about it every week on the podcast. Yeah, I went to the meeting this week. What they talk about? I don't know. I didn't understand any of it. Every time I interjected, they wouldn't answer. And hopefully we would have gotten more listeners out of it, and I would have gotten, if that was the case. I'm theoretical, right. What if rabbit hole here. But even on something like that where they opened it to a non-member of the said community, they still appointed somebody that was kind of in the community. And it's like, well, that defeats the purpose of having a non-community person as part of this thing. If you're just going to put somebody that's community adjacent.
I wonder if they have a site and talks about their what's going on.
I don't know. I don't know. It's been a while. Those crazy times. Those crazy times back then. The other one was my new mailer I got, which I was really upset with until I read it. And so, like, I was really mad because it says, will your lawmaker stand for parents' rights? So it's the same mailer that, same shape mailer. And so I assumed it was starting some of the state and federal primaries that will be in August with our general. Mm-hmm. Because it's got Massey and Elaine Davis on it. And I was really bummed because I was like, are Massey and Elaine going to run on the set? Like, are they kind of like running together? Are they trying to coalesce into because they're not the same people to me.
Right.
And I was very upset by the premise of that. But then I read through it, and it's actually Americans for Prosperity Tennessee chapter on, it says, call Becky Massey and call Elaine Davis and bother them about saying yes to the voucher bill. Not voucher bill. Sorry. Say yes to school choice.
School savings, educational savings account.
That's the link I sent you earlier.
Right.
And it's like, and again, I'm gonna call Becky about it and be like, hey Becky, help me understand this, because if it's $7,000 that the state is giving in educational funding for my kid, then I want to give that $7,000 to my kid's school that he goes to at Rocky Hill Elementary School.
And they're going to say that doesn't work like that.
And I'm going to say, well, how does it work? Or the other part of it's like, okay, fine, I'm going to send my kid to Rocky Hill Elementary School. Give me that $7,000 to spend on, because it's like the way that,
I don't
okay.
do that either.
Hold on, let me pull it up.
I think it was money for, you want to send them to a private school or homeschooling. Because I thought I'd heard before that homeschooling was not a part of it.
I know, I've told you that like 4 times, and every time you say, I don't think it is. And I say, yeah, I think it is. Okay. So this is the AmericansForProsperity.org Tennessee School Choice, AmericansForProsperity.org/Tennessee TN School Choice. If you want to go look it up, TN-School-Choice. A little bit halfway down it goes to myths and facts. Myth: the Universal Education Savings Account program will come with strings attached, forcing public schools and homeschools to adopt government curriculum. One, that's a typo. That is a typo. It should say strings attached, forcing private schools and homeschools, because public schools already have to follow the state standards. So it's not going to force. It can't force public schools to do something different that it's already doing. So anyway, that's a typo. It should say private. This is disinformation meant to scare people into opposing a program that would greatly benefit them. If it actually wanted to, nothing is currently preventing the government from implementing standards of curriculum on private schools and homeschoolers. The government could do so without giving whatever to this fellow. Same thing. Myth: Governor Lee is introducing a school voucher. Fact: this is factually inaccurate and intellectually dishonest. Governor Lee's Educational Freedom Scholarship is an education savings account, or ESA. Opponents of school choice are purposely misleading people to believe it is a voucher because vouchers have negative connotation associated with them. An ESA functions much in the same way as your health savings account does, but for education expenses instead. My health savings account, when I had one in my previous employer, if I went to go pick up a prescription at the drugstore, I could pay for that out of there. If I went and got Tylenol or NyQuil, because I had a cold, I could pay for that out of there.
Yeah.
I could go to the doctor's office and I could pay my copays with it. I could go to my dentist office and pay for the toothpaste, the special toothpaste and flossers that he has there that I can't get anywhere else. That's how health savings accounts works. When I spent any money that fell under under healthcare, I could use my health savings account to pay for it.
I don't think they're saying it's exactly like it. I think they're just trying to kind of equate it to it.
Well,
I see your point.
So myth, it's not like a health savings account because I still have my insurance, right? When I had my health savings account, I still had my insurance, and my insurance still like part of it. It wasn't you don't get your insurance if you want to use your health savings account, or if you use your health savings account, your insurance won't apply. That's not how that worked. So that implies to me that I should be able to go buy my books and pencils and paper and all that kind of stuff and get the state to pay for that for me when I go to do my school shopping. Hell, I should be able to expense gas because I don't want to make my kids wait on the bus.
I think there's a way to do that. Because, I mean, you couldn't have retailers. There's no way for the retailers to charge this state fund for school supplies, etc.
I mean, I'll just keep my receipts and I'll send them to the state and ask for a refund.
Well, I'd say they're probably going to be like, well, that's what you have this $7,000 for. You can put it towards school. It's to help you pay for schooling, Whether if you choose a really expensive private school.
It's not for schooling. It's for education.
Right, but I would consider supplies a part of schooling.
You know what? I want to take my kids to the zoo. That's an educational experience.
Yeah.
I should be able to use my education savings account on that. Just because my kids go to Knox County schools doesn't mean I shouldn't be able to tap into my education savings fund, right?
I think you can do that via the homeschool, what do they call them? Like co-optive.
But my kids aren't in homeschool. My kids are in public school.
No, but you could do that through this, I believe.
Now, yes, as if you are homeschooling and you get your voucher, which isn't a voucher but is a voucher, whatever,
right.
And you get your $7,000 per kid per year, and your homeschooling co-op goes whatever, you can spend that money. Like, I'm curious. Like, I mean, the homeschooling one, like the private school one's easy because the private schools are going to be more than $7,000, so that's the whole $7,000 is going to go straight to the private school.
Right.
The homeschooling one's going to be interesting how they have to account that as a homeschool family.
That's one thing that I was kind of curious of.
I mean, hell, if it's me, I would just say it costs me $7,000 a year to teach, and you're paying me $7,000 a year as the teacher.
Well, I think if we had more structured, quote unquote, like actual homeschooling and a way to look at it instead of someone like, hey, you just fill out this form and tell us you're homeschooling.
I mean, I get we've gone over that one a couple times, and that's a different argument. Functionally,
yeah.
But I get what you're saying. But even I don't know. Either way, I'm curious. Like this, I mean, obviously this is a biased version of telling the story, or whatever. But like that, really, like when I was reading through this, it's like a health savings account. It's like, I hope so. That would be fucking cool. Like if it's really like a health savings account, and then I can send my kids to the public school, my insurer, I can use my insurance option, public schools, but then I can use my health savings account, education savings account equivalent for expenditures that go along with schooling. Like I went to the stupid book fair and we bought like $80 worth of books the other day.
Right.
I went to first week of school. It's like a couple $100 for like fees and registrations and sign-ups and this, that, and the other. If I could pay my school lunch fees with that would be great. Now, if that's the truth, then they win. They win. They win hands down. I'm on board. If that is the truth, I am on board.
Sure, there's some word in there that I was like, this is a very like holistic word, and I was surprised they even like used the word. But in kind of glancing through it, I saw a good bit of I was kind of taken back with how much it's all about. Like it's going to give parents so much more control. You'll have so many more like options. And I'm thinking, just here in like Knox County, there's not that many private schools. So outside of like private homeschooling, they're like. And you could like, it can help you, like, it's going to help the teachers out, too, because they, you can have more choice as to what kind of curriculum. And I'm like, I think that's just opening up the door to, a plethora of kind of what we already have in the public schools. You're going to have debates as to what that school should or should not be teaching, what the curriculum should or shouldn't be.
That is the dog whistle that's actually happening right now.
And they're like, you're going to have so much more choice.
That's the choice that's the dog whistle of choice. Right. The dog whistle of choice is that you have a choice of what gets taught.
I don't know how they think that's going to go away.
Do what?
I don't know how they think that's going to go away.
Well, if I get to take my kid to a private school, I will have more. The theory is that I would have more influence on how that school teaches, what that school teaches.
Why?
I mean, depending on the private school. Well, let me rephrase that. The philosophy of the school that I choose to send my kid to is going to be more in line with my philosophy, so I'm not going to have to nitpick their curriculum.
And if they decide to change it?
I mean, it's still on the philosophy of the school. Like, if the school philosophy changes, then I'd probably pull my kid out.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying? I mean, okay, because American Prosperity, Moms for Liberty, those kind of fucks that are on board with this kind of shit that are all pissy about it. This is God. This. They want you to have the option for the state to pay for you to send your kids to a Christian private school.
Right.
The choice is you're already a Christian, right? So send your kid. We'll help you pay for the Christian private school that you would prefer to have your kid in, because they're going to teach the values of God and Jesus and whatnot, as well as regular education stuff. That's the choice they're pretending like you have, and you do if private schools exist that teach your philosophy. Like if there was an anarcho-libertarian private school in Knoxville, I'd be pretty excited. I'd want to send my kids there. And I'd want the state to pay for it, which is really funny if you think about it.
I thought it seemed just very, I guess, very rosy outlook upon things. It's like, the parents will have so much more choice. And it even said like the teachers are going to have like so much more like freedom and choice.
I mean, in theory,
and I'm like, how is this affecting that?
In theory, you do. I mean, that's not. That one seems truthful to me in the sense that if the demand for private schools goes up, the demand for teachers at private schools goes up. The private schools will have to recruit teachers in one way or the other. And I could see how certain teachers might feel like it's preferable to teach at a private school. Longer breaks, shorter hours throughout the day. I don't know, whatever their particular format is that's different than the public school. I mean, okay, and this is a bad one, and it's going to get me in trouble, whatever, but, my stupid complaint about the special needs issues with the kids that have been in my kid's classroom, and my kids coming home complaining about how they're getting in trouble in class because they can't concentrate because there's a special need kids interrupting constantly, right? That whole stupid story I told a while back. I would assume that teachers that's tough on a teacher too. Well, one of the things that everybody's bitching about the voucher program is that these private schools aren't obligated to take these special needs kids because they're not required to by state law, right? They can choose which kids they let in. Well, if they don't let any special needs kids in, then you don't have to deal with them in the classroom. That might be a better classroom to be in as a teacher. Now, is a teacher going to say that flat out like I just said it? No. But do they think it? Probably. And some teachers might be willing to take a little bit of a pay cut to go to a school that has no issues with X, Y, or Z that they have to deal with because the public school has to take these kids. I could see that as an honest, non-hateful stance to take as a teacher. I would think. I get paid the same, but I don't have to deal with as many problematic kids because we don't have a bunch of X, Y, or Z's in the school. I could see that as a net positive for a teacher. And that'd be a choice that I might be willing to take as a teacher. And it's a choice. Some teachers like it. Some teachers enjoy that. Some teachers thrive on that interaction with that and whatever. But, that's...
I mean, I would say overall you have more disruptive children in a general classroom versus special needs children causing issues in classrooms.
I would argue that the perception, whether it's true or not, that the perception is not the same in private schools, period. Whether it's special needs or normal kids. I would say my perception is that private schools have no issues with problematic kids. That's the perception. It's not true.
Right.
But that's the perception. And again, that's the dog whistle choice that they're selling. You can send your kid to this pristine, beautiful XYZ that has no problems, and all their kids are Rhodes Scholars when they get out, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, none of that's actually true. But it's not a choice by definition.
I think it's kind of meant to sound like this is going to be like, oh, this is going to change everything.
Well, and I think there's an inference that when this goes into full practice, and as this transitions over, that we will have more schools, more private schools come in, more different style private schools that have different methods and different philosophies, different classroom sizes, different education metrics, and all that kind of stuff. That as the system grows, more schools will come in to take advantage of the funds that are available.
But and how many schools can we, I guess, like fit to bring in to where they can financially run a school?
We have 60,000 in Knox County schools. So 60,000 times 7,000, however many schools can functionally afford to do it at that number. And that's only
in that mathematics. That's the entire Knox County going out of public and straight into private.
I mean, theoretically, like if you're asking, like, what's the capacity for private schools in Knoxville? Is that the question you're going to ask? Like, how many private
conjunction
schools?
With public?
I mean, as many.
I'm sorry, this isn't going to totally just cancel public schooling.
Theoretically, I mean, I'm not saying it will either, but theoretically, And again, assuming that all the private schools are only charging the $7,000, which we know that's not going to be true either.
Right.
But like in a perfectly free market, and I know this isn't reality, don't jump down my throat on that part of it, but in a perfectly free market version of it, as many schools that can house as many kids as they can see as a profitable enterprise is how much capacity we have for private schools.
That's exactly what this is based on. You know who started this? Milton Friedman.
Okay. I'm open to like.
I was just saying you were talking about free market, and I'm like, that's exactly who started this. Was a free market economist.
Who? American Prosperities or the voucher program?
American for Prosperities.
Okay. That's what they're implying in here, in choice. The
Right.
choice doesn't currently exist. The implication is that the market is going to allow more choices.
Right.
It's not that the choices are already here, but it's chicken or the egg game. You can't make a bunch of private schools come into town.
I just thought it was interesting that an economist started this educational thing. It's not completely outside of their wheelhouse.
They're like so. Most of your school of business is a bachelor of science, right? And so in colleges you have you have bachelor of science and bachelor of arts. Science is 2 + 2 = 4. Arts are more ethereal. They don't have there's not an equation based thing. So there is science to economy, and there are reasons why the thought process of if the market is allowed to do what it does, that X, Y, and Z will potentially happen. Milton Friedman and others, like they're futurists. They go and they say, well, if we run down this course, these are the things that will happen in the future. And I think it was Friedman that had a couple of pretty accurate predictions on a couple of things. It was some of the Reagan policy stuff. He's like, if Reagan does this policy, 2 presidents later, this is going to happen. It was like the dot-com bubble or something like that.
Trickle down economics.
Yeah, it was some bullshittery like that. But anyway, there is science too. The premise is there. Like that's like. So one of the other big news items of the week is there's a company that's it's a Topgolf ripoff, basically. Who's looking at putting a Topgolf into right there on 275 and 40 come together. You know where Old Gray Cemetery is? We grab me one while you're in there, please. You know where Old Gray Cemetery is on Broadway? Yep. Yeah, so the backside of Old Gray Cemetery is Second Creek. Second Creek runs... It's on the surface on the north side of town, but once it gets into downtown, it's underground, and then it runs into the Tennessee River. So the gap between Second Creek is the back of Old Gray Cemetery, and then so Second Creek to 275 is this plot of land. It used to be some sort of like metals recycling place decades ago. It's been vacant forever. So this developer wants to come in. He's asking for a pilot from the city to help him develop this piece of land to basically build a Topgolf. It's a driving range with indoor putt-putt. It's supposed to be like a super big sports bar kind of thing, like, a big bar restaurant area as part of it too, and all this kind of shit.
Okay.
Anyway, a couple of guys were talking about it today, and they actually asked me to contribute to their show, which was wonderful. I love doing it. Listen to the show. It comes out on Sunday at 10 a.m. I'm on it. And they're like, you own a business in the Holler right up there, right up the street. Like, how do you feel about this weird golf center coming in? And I was like, the bar owner in me is like, well, that's a competitor that's not far away that I've got to try to figure out how to compete with over time. But, I think, we went into Happy Holler and into the near north section of Knoxville because we saw the potential of growth. The rent's not cheap, but it's not unaffordable. But we saw the potential upside as that neighborhood comes up because there's, the new Yeehaw place down there. Fuck you, Yeehaw. Yeehaw and a bunch of the Axle Logistics buildings and that kind of stuff. The whatever laundromat that's right on the corner of North Shore or Broadway and Central. It's like an old laundry, Key Laundry Services or something that got bought by an architecture firm that's moving out of downtown to move up there. And so like there's growth potential. There's stuff happening there, and I'm excited about it. Hollaroo, the whole point of Hollaroo is to try to accelerate that. I don't want to wait. I want the city to get on board with getting the near North Knoxville hot and awesome sooner than later. That's the goal. And so it's like, yeah, man, I'm excited. It's a huge multi-million-dollar facility going in. It's going to have a lot of money. There's going to be a lot of buzz about it. Everybody's going to hear about it. Everybody's going to go down and check it out eventually, which puts them in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that puts more potential customers in my door. And so, good for the goose, good for the gander, right? And so it's like, I'm good either way on it. Like the market that, having a, I always go back to this premise, and I think Max might have been the one that taught it to me, but it might have been somebody else. When you go anywhere, there's always that strip. Like we have Turkey Creek here, we have Merchants here, but it's like this one strip of road that you have like Applebee's, O'Charlie's, Outback Steakhouse, IHOP. Like I'm doing Merchants in my head right now.
All right.
There's a couple of Mexican restaurants. They're always right together. You never see an Applebee's out in the middle of nowhere by itself. It's always in a pile of places because it works. That is market. That is free market working because the assumption the assumption is if I'm the only one for miles, I'm going to get everybody. Well, the reality is I have to choose to go to you specifically. Where if I just go to the neighborhood where a bunch of places are, I might take you. I might take the one next door.
Yeah. I
may not go to the neighborhood knowing where I'm going. But since I'm going to the neighborhood and you're in it, you have a chance of getting me as a customer. And that's why that is the invisible hand doing its thing. That's not city or counties or state government saying we're only allowing restaurants of this size and type in this one street. Like Merchants and what's the one right above Merchants? Callahan.
Yeah.
Why doesn't if the model of be the only one is the way to win, then, the Applebee's was already on Merchants. O'Charlie's would have put themselves on Callahan to give them some space. But no, O'Charlie's moved in next to Applebee's because that's how it works. It wasn't I'm saying it's not a government thing. It's not a land use thing. That's the free market thing. That's the invisible hand at work. That's why companies do that. Nobody told them to do it. There wasn't some cabal of restaurant owners that got together and says, hey, if we all build next to each other, then our road will be the only road to go to eat, and we'll all get customers that way. That's not how it happened. It just happened naturally.
Okay.
You make fun of the invisible hand all the time. I just happened to come across a good example of how the invisible hand works.
I mean, I could see that also being, I'm sure Merchants has been like that for a while. Callahan has been the opposite of that for a while.
Okay. Turkey Creek.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole thing was built at the same time.
Right.
So,
because it was intended to be as that.
But big major players who are successful players in the game, Chick-fil-A, Red Robin, O'Charlie's. I don't know who else is in there. There's some failures that came and went.
Yeah, there was an O'Charlie's in there.
That's where Max went. He went. That's when campus closed down. That he went out there. I mean, hell, O'Charlie's closed the one in Farragut to go over there. They had the one over there by the Ingalls just past the school.
I don't remember that one being down there.
Yeah, it was across the street from the Ingalls. And it was down there for a long time. He went out there, but they closed that one down about the same time when they opened the Turkey Creek. So they shut one down that was out by itself,
right,
to go put one in the middle of stuff. And so, it was an intentional move on O'Charlie's part to do it. That's my point.
At the same time, I don't know. I could see that also just being I mean, you see gas stations right across the corner from each other. I think some of that's just a high traffic area. And like you said, with restaurants, if someone's going to look for a restaurant, they may see one restaurant that's got the parking lot full, but there are 4 or 5 more options.
Or it's like, hey, let's go to Applebee's. And it's like, oh, snap, there's a El Chico's. I could go for a fucking chimichanga.
Right. I mean, there's a reason, malls have food courts.
Yes.
We're only going to allow 2 or 3 restaurants in here. It's like, no, let's have a whole bunch of tiny versions of a bunch of restaurants.
Right. Sabaro's become a punching bag for pizza places for us in this house. We make fun of it now.
I actually went to the food court for the first time in a long time the other day.
Did you go sit down and have a Fanatic at the bar?
No, it looked like they were closed. I don't think I saw anybody behind it.
They have weird hours.
I mean, it looked like it was open, but I never saw somebody actually manning the quote-unquote bar.
Yeah, they have some weird hours.
I did try a burger place. It wasn't too bad.
We go in there for, is it Chipotle?
Yeah, I think there's a Chipotle in there. But I was sitting there. It's always funny to like look and see like the handful of restaurants that are like really slow, and like I was like, it's gotta suck to work at those and see like the one right next to you with just like a line of people.
It's gotta suck to own it.
Why don't you come over?
You're getting paid to be
Right.
there. You're getting paid to be there.
True.
But
But I mean, a lot of people work there. Probably somebody close to the owner or whatever, because it's usually run by like 3 or 4 people. It's not big crews that are run most of those places.
yeah, it's I don't know, like that Chick-fil-A is always banging, and there's one right across the street.
I just happened to go there on a Sunday when they were closed.
Yeah, that they built the one. They built and remodeled that one on Morel already. They shut it down for a couple months and remodeled it and reopened it.
Yeah,
and it's only like it hasn't been there that long, but it's.
They just redid the drive-through.
They did. Now they did some inside work too. They shut it down, like we couldn't order from there.
Right.
Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. It wasn't shut down very long.
Yeah, but they did. I bet they weren't there for very long before they did it.
It's funny. The one in Turkey Creek. Well,
Moved,
yeah,
like-
the old one. That building is still there. Looks exactly just like it. The fucking play place is still there in the front of it. I'm just surprised like nobody's snapped that up yet. Hell, you buy the building, you get a free slide and a little play area.
Yeah, and you know you're not going to have a drive-through. You're not going to do the amount of drive-through that Chick-fil-A does.
Right.
I mean, good. Chick-fil-A's pretty. Their drive-through system is pretty good. They can move a lot.
Fast.
They can move a lot of stuff there. I wonder if anybody's gotten hit yet, like badly, like run over.
Employees?
Yeah.
That's why they make them wear those yellow vests, and the way they can't sue them. It's like
My niece was working at the one out in Farragut, one of the ones out there, and she was at Christmas or something. She was talking about she got to work the drive-through. I was like, outside? She's like, yeah. I was like, did you get to wear the building? And she was like, what? I was like, I was at one of them.
the little rain thing.
Yeah, they had the little rain. I don't know. It's a little pop-up tent that you wear.
Yeah.
That the person was walking around in with the iPad or whatever. I was cracking up, but.
A couple I've seen like a little 3-sided, like little covered, like single, like booth, but I never seen anybody use it.
Yeah, the one out here at North Shore has that because it goes 2 lanes where you order at the screen and you're talking to the speaker thing.
I've never had to do that. My window's been messed up for a while, so I haven't been able to go through the drive-through.
Well, yeah, you're right. Usually they have the people out there doing it, but that one has the little building that you're talking about. That I think what it used to be, or what the idea behind it was, is you'd order at the speaker, and then when the 2 lanes came together, you'd pay at that little outhouse, for lack of a better word, and then pick up your food at the window.
I think I've seen people use it to where the people are standing there taking the money. They've got a card reader, but they don't have cash on them.
Yeah.
So I think I've seen it where like, hey, pay that
Let's talk
person, like they've got the actual cash register. I've seen some of them have the old school like little change things. Like,
Yeah.
I always wanted one of those.
Did I tell you about when we went down to the Boy With You show at the Variety, that they had no cash,
Yeah.
no cash bar. The bar was open, but you weren't allowed to. Like, I brought cash thinking that they would prefer it.
I'm pretty sure Bridgestone. I know I just kept paying with my debit card or whatever. But
No, yeah, because I remember I asked the guy, the first beer we got, where'd that koozie go? You got that koozie still?
yeah, it's at home.
Okay. Don't lose that koozie. That was a gift.
No, I just lost my other one.
Your giant Yingling one?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I remember asking the guy, I was like, I have cash. And he's like, nope.
Yeah. I mean, it's speeding it up, but at the same time, it's just kind of perpetuating an already growing issue.
Well, I'm sure, like, I'm sure whatever bank sponsors, it's probably some reciprocal. The bank charges them less, or the bank sponsors them something like. I'm sure it's some bullshit.
Regions
like
is one of their sponsors now.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, the Regions isn't a processor. I don't know. I'm sure there's some bullshit back of the house deal where they're not paying. Like,
I think it's more
1%.
they just know they can get more sales. They can get more people in and out of
Yeah,
there
I mean,
faster. So you're making people happier because they're not waiting in line as long.
And you know, the pessimist in me says there's no theft.
Right, and
You don't have to worry about they can steal product, but they can't steal.
yeah, you're less likely if someone giving back incorrect change or whatever.
Right, they can't steal product and money.
Right.
They can only steal product. But yeah, so that was the big stuff I had. I think.
I saw couples. There was a local story. I think it was at maybe like a Nashville local station or whatever. I was trying to see if it was a national story. that talked about a couple recent incidences in the Capitol, the state Capitol.
Incidences being,
as far as legislators kind of getting up in each other's faces.
I'm good with it. Fuck decorum.
That's what it was about. I think that was actually the title or the headline of the story.
Was it fuck decorum? That's cool.
Well, yeah, it was basically a lack of decorum or losing decorum. And they made the reference to, I think it was even like brought up in our state house. They're like, yeah, well, Andrew Jackson, beat somebody with a cane. And I was like, well, yeah, apparently, I remember hearing the story, but never knew like specifics of it. I think I remember seeing the thing on like Drunk History. But it was also the same guy that like apparently tried to assassinate him. Yeah, so, I mean, if I ran into somebody that tried to assassinate me and I happened to have a walking cane with me, I'd probably take some swings too.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know how to articulate exactly what I'm thinking on this one, other than.
I think in that setting, because I think these were on like the House floor. I think one of them was actually in a committee, maybe.
Yeah.
But, I mean, outside of because most of these are televised as well.
I don't know.
I mean, not many people are watching it, but at the same time, I don't see why they should be able to get away with being jackasses to each other, and that's the main thing.
I don't think there's any there. I don't. Let's see here. How do I word this? I don't think there's ever any good excuse for physical violence.
Right.
Like I don't think you never have the right to punch somebody unless you have clear and present they're going to hurt you or somebody you care about first, and it is a preemptive act of self-defense, for lack of a better word. I guess to me the decorum thing is I don't know. Like I'm not a policy. Philosophically, I don't care for either of the was it Jones and
Pearson.
Yeah, like I don't care for either one of them politically. But I also,
don't forget about Gloria.
Yeah, the politics, their politics and their philosophies aside, I'm good with them being assholes. Like, I mean, I think it's appropriate for them to be assholes. I think that is good functional democracy at work. It's like, hey, you're not listening to me. You don't have to listen to me when we vote. You don't have to vote the way I tell you to vote, but you at least have to listen to me. And if you refuse to listen to me, I'm going to make you by interrupting.
I think that was at least one of the incidences where it was part of that and I remember seeing a story earlier, and that must have been kind of what it was in reference to, or I think it was a local story that was going over and I remember asking a question about this before when I was watching some of the legislation. I'm like, wait, what the hell is this? Like, call the last question? I'm like, what is this? To where it stops all debate once someone says, okay, call previous question. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going to call previous question.
We've gotten wandering off the topic here. Let's get back to shit. Let's get this shit over with, whether we truly have or not. But
that just stops debate.
Right.
Like, we're not discussing this anymore. Like, all right, call the previous question. And then there's like a small little quick vote on it, which 99% of the time it's Republicans in favor, pretty much trying to stop the Democrats from trying to keep the discussion going about something.
I mean, that's what I don't understand about it, though. It's like it's not like it's not. The only logical conclusion is that the Republicans know that their ideas suck, and that public scrutiny of their ideas by letting other people talk about it and people pay attention to it and having reasonable discussion on it is going to make it blaringly obvious that their ideas suck.
Nah, I think it may just be more of they already know they've got the votes, and they're like, I don't want to listen to you talk anymore. Like, we're just going to go ahead and vote on it. We're going to win anyway. I'm going to go ahead and just, okay, we'll let you put one of your 2 cents in. Like, we're done. We're going to vote on this. We're going to go ahead and pass it. That's what we're going to do anyway.
That's what I'm saying, though. But, like, if you know you're going to win anyway, then what's it hurt? Like, what's the damage other than wasting your time? And you know what? Fuck your time. That's, I guess, part of my thing. It's like, I don't give a shit about your time.
Well, they want to be able to pass more of their bills.
Well, but if you really wanted to be, like, if you really wanted to shut Gloria and the Pearson and Joneses of the world down, is you let them make their impassioned speeches and lose over and over again. You're empowering them by shutting them up, like on a purely practical is not the word I'm looking for here. Tactical basis, like purely out of just like, battle of ideas tactics. You're better off letting them run their fucking mouth for 5 minutes, saying, "Okay, thank you for your comments and concerns. Anybody else? Let's call the vote." Okay. Because then they're like, again, let's my joke about Gloria. She's got the easiest job in politics. All she has to do is complain and she wins. She doesn't have to get anything done. And so for the Pearsons and the Jones and the Glorias of the world, they can go complain on the floor and all their constituents who love them will be like, yeah. And they still don't get shit done. But now all their constituents are like, they won't even let us speak. They don't want to hear from us. This becomes this is about us and our thoughts. They won't even let us talk.
I can't remember what bill they were discussing, but that was the little thing that I remember reading a little story about, that it was in a committee where the previous question was called, and then they have to vote, I guess, on whether to go ahead and vote on it. To where they do the previous question.
Right.
I guess where they'll have to decide that, like, hey, yes, we're all agree.
Right. Have we talked about this enough?
We're stopping debate, yeah.
Right.
But apparently it was done in a committee, and it has to be like over 66% or whatever.
2/3.
2/3,
right?
basically, yeah. But it was actually done in a committee, and that technically failed, but it still got gavelled out. And I think Sexton was basically kind of like, well, I think the Democrats were trying to bring it back, basically trying to get them to like redo or undo the ruling of the committee or whatever,
because
of allowing the bill to pass. They're like, wait. Now, the previous question was called, and it did not pass 2/3, but it still got gavelled out, so it still got, I guess, quote-unquote, voted out of committee or whatever. So it was in like a weird little gray area. So the Democrats were trying to push it back into the committee. They're like, hey, technically by the rules.
That's where we got to get the English kid over here so that he can tell us how to do procedure right.
Right.
That's a ridiculous story. That's a great story.
Right.
Yeah. Again, but that's the other part of it too. That's why I don't care about decorum, because I don't care about procedure either. Like, yeah, on some level, yes. Don't get me wrong. Like, procedure is obligated to make this functional thing kind of work, but it's so damn convoluted and weird. Like, I've watched county commission meetings where, whatever rule book that they always reference, and it's like, what is it like? Okay, everybody agrees on the thing, yeah. Then who cares about the order of operations? Vote on it and be done with it.
These are things they're writing into law and into statutes.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like,
So, I mean, that opens them up for appeal if a law or whatever does not get put in properly.
Appeal by who?
Any lawyer that wants to fight that ruling that the law was made.
Because
we have laws overturned constantly and appealed, saying, this law was unconstitutional when it was passed for being vague, etc.
Right, because the law is vague and etc., not because it didn't go through the exact procedural process.
I'm assuming that would still be grounds for appeal of it as well. It's like, hey, when this law was passed, it was not passed properly.
Oh, but I guess but like, what does properly mean? Like, what is like? Okay, so
by the rules that are written into the book that we were just talking about.
Yes, I follow that.
Well, then don't play stupid.
I'm going to play very stupid, because if it's like, okay, so rules like, okay, so I make a motion to X. Do I have a second? Yes, I have a second, and then X happens. So I, motion to table this till next meeting. Second, vote, done. Right. Why do I need a second? Who cares? Hey, can we put this off till next month? Okay, everybody agrees. Let's put it off till next month. Oh, you didn't get a second. You have to do it now. Like, I mean, it just seems like it just seems like a lot of the nuances of it seem ridiculous to me. On the grand scheme of things, yes, I understand that there needs to be some procedure from A to B. The example being, the call to question or whatever didn't get the 2/3 it was supposed to and got gavelled out. Right? So then it didn't work right, but the committee still passed it, whatever the issue was, right? So did the committee pass it or not?
And that's where, when I was reading it, it was kind of in a weird little legal gray area.
The moral of the story is that the request to shut down conversation failed, but they went ahead and voted on it anyway, and the vote was good enough to get it out of committee. That's my understanding of what you're telling me. And so the pushback's going to be, well, procedurally you skipped a step. even though the committee voted this way and will vote this way again, if we actually shut down conversation correctly instead of, 60% instead of 66% voted to shut down conversation. But we shut down conversation and voted on it, the argument's going to be that somebody was going to have such a compelling speech that it was going to flip the vote. Somebody was waiting in line to speak next, and if it would have...
I'd have to reread it. I see what you're saying.
Yes, on like specific of, okay, well, the state of Tennessee says a constitutional amendment has to go
I think they were voting to, voted out of committee as far as, approving it to go out of committee.
Right.
It wasn't I don't think it was just the vote to stop discussion, and then they voted on it and then approved it or whatever to get out of committee. I think the vote to get it out of committee was what was in question.
Okay, that makes more sense. And so to get it out of committee, it has to be a 2/3 vote, and it didn't get there.
I believe so.
That's the question. Okay, that makes more sense. I apologize. I thought you were saying it was a 2/3 vote to shut down conversation.
Yeah,
I should have
reread it before I.
Okay. I don't know. Again, I don't like. It's such a. To me, it's just such a pussy ass move to shut down conversation. To me, if I don't know. If
I mean, we talk all the time that they do over 1,000, 2,000 bills a year or whatever.
Oh, and we talk all the time about how I think that's way too much. And so, if you want to get more shit done, then take more time, suck it up, spend the whole year there. I don't care. If you really think that this many things need to happen, then spend all year there.
I thought you were just saying, why do they need to have a second?
Huh?
I thought you were just saying, why do they need to have a second? That's just adding more time into it.
No, that's just the procedural bullshittery is that I was calling to it. That's all I was calling attention to. To me, it's like, okay, I don't care if you want to move things faster, and you don't want to have an actual discussion about what it is. You just want it to move faster. So let's skip discussion. That's not acceptable to me. Take the time to make the discussion.
Right.
And if you still need, if that discussion takes a little longer than you want it to, and it takes you an extra month to finish session,
pretend like you give a shit about your constituents.
Right. Sorry, my bad.
Right.
Because I don't think you need to do 2,000 bills a fucking year. I don't think that's fucking real. I really don't. Because and especially on the ones that you keep bringing up, the little fixes, those don't take any fucking time anyway.
What little fixes have I brought up?
I mean, you're saying there's a lot of little isms, little adjustments to stuff like what we were talking about last week with the Chevron deference thing. Mm-hmm. What I think should happen is, hey, we wrote this law last year, and agriculture came back and said it was a little they couldn't quite, they weren't sure if this if the law we wrote was supposed to apply to this or not. So let's make an amendment to the thing we did last year to clarify that point. That should be a pretty quick thing. Because that's a little fix. You've said that a bunch about how many bills. A lot of them are little this, that, and the others. They're not big, complicated thing. They're updating this. They're approving the new budget for Z, whatever it is. Those shouldn't take a long time. I wouldn't think.
Some of those things are matters of debate as to
then debate it.
The specifics of what exactly should be adding.
I would be curious.
Essentially, they're making amendments to, not the actual state constitution, but they're amending
previous bills. Yes,
right.
Then get down. Then write better bills in the first place, so you don't have to amend them all the fucking time. That'd be a good start. Now things change. I get it. I'm not trying to say that's not the point, but if if the amendment is up for debate, then it needs to be fucking debated. But I would challenge you, and I don't know how you would do this. I'll see if I can't poke a few things and see if I can't shake a few knowledge nuggets loose. But of things that we would consider little ticky-tacky, just little adjustments, little fixes, little tiny this, that, and the others, of the 2,000 bills a year, how many do you think are that?
A third.
So 700, 800 of them?
Maybe.
666, I guess, if we're going to... Satan! We're going to get 667, somewhere in there. I would think that's a little high, but I could see it getting up to a third. But that means there's 1,300 bills of what? That's my question every year, all the time.
All right.
Like, of what? Like, what are we doing? Is there 1,300 issues in the state of Tennessee that are so important that a law needs to be passed about them? I don't think there is. I really don't. And I guess more importantly, in my grander philosophical view, are there 1,300 things a year that are statewide needing a law passed about them? Are there 1,300 things a year that Memphis needs to deal with? Maybe. Are there 800 things that Memphis needs to deal with? A couple hundred that Nashville needs to deal with? A couple hundred that Knoxville needs to deal with? Probably. But maybe they should deal with them on their own because they have home rule and like we should have some independence in our local governments because that's the way I think it should work. But I don't need, just like Memphis, like this Memphis bill on their cop situation that we were talking about earlier. That's none of my fucking business. I don't care. Why is that my issue? Why are my representatives voting on that? That's not an issue for us. That needs to be a Memphis issue, and Memphis needs to deal with that. That's not a state issue. The state is injecting themselves in that because they think they're the most important kids in town.
Well, no, I think on actual like police procedure, something like that, I think should be more statewide. And it's not just like, only within the county. On sheriff's
offices, yes, but I think the cities have the right to run their police departments. They're independent. They I don't know. I don't believe the city.
Why should the sheriff's departments be treated differently than
because
the city police department?
The sheriff works for the state. The sheriff doesn't work for Knox County. The sheriff works for the state of Tennessee.
The sheriff does, right?
The sheriff's office does,
right?
The Knoxville does not. Now they may work together from time to time with the sheriff's office or state troopers or whatever, but at the end of the day, KPD is solely functional inside the umbrella of the city of Knoxville government. I don't believe, I could be wrong, I don't believe that the city of Knoxville gets state funding for their police department.
I would think they probably do, but I don't know.
I don't believe they do. I think they get some federal funding, but I don't think they get state funding. And if they do...
So vice versa, does Knox County not get any city funding?
No. I mean, well, the city of Knoxville pays Knox County for the detention center use and a couple other things, but it's like a functional use. Like Knox County does X, and the city of Knoxville pays Knox County Sheriff's Office to do it when it's in the city limits. Not dissimilar to how the new city-county animal control is going to work.
With Young Williams.
Yeah, but they used to, Knox County used to have animal control, and the city of Knoxville used to have animal control, and now Young Williams is going to take them both over. But like if especially out here in the weird spots like my house where I'm on the city line and all that kind of shit, if a Knox County truck came out here and it happened to be on some on Morrell proper where they catch some wild dog, Knox County Sheriff might bill the city for that service. Probably not on that particular issue. But I know the city of Knoxville pays Knox County Sheriff's Office for use of the detention center.
Right.
Because if you're arrested, the city doesn't have criminal level stuff anyway.
There used to be, I think, a temporary jail inside.
City County building has one. Sorry, I apologize.
The police station.
Yeah, I'm sure there's one in the new one, too. I'm sure they have a small one.
Are they operating out of the old one at all still?
Nope.
Okay. At least that's what I heard. I thought there was like a temporary one. Pretty much.
Sure
that's where you go like before I guess like the booking area probably. Maybe.
Yeah, well, the city court is there.
Yeah.
But still, I don't think you're not very likely to be in city court while detained. Unless you're detained in Knox County, or unless you're detained for something different, and you happen to be having to show up at city court for a traffic violation or something like that, I don't know how that would work.
Like I thought in like some cases, they essentially process you at the precinct before you go to the jail. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
Never been in that situation, thankfully.
They process you wherever you are in the back of their car, and then the paddy wagon comes and picks you up 9 times out of 10. The time I got arrested, at least.
Yeah.
Paddy wagon took me in. I was in that paddy wagon for fuck ever. Peed my pants. Bad.
That's what happens.
I was real drunk. I needed to get arrested. I'm not mad about it.
All right.
Well, I needed better friends at the time, I think is what it was. Because the friend I called couldn't figure out how to come get me because he was also drunk. And so it's like, well, that doesn't help. Guess, shit. I don't know. That was a dumb. Anyway. Yeah. So anyway, where were we at before that? Before I went into my sad, I got arrested for being an idiot story.
Just excessive bills.
Oh yeah. I just don't. I don't believe it. Doesn't make it. It doesn't seem reasonable to me that many things are statewide issues every fucking year, and especially that they have so many things that are so important that they can't bother talking about them. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
I'd say, yeah, I wouldn't want to really put a percentage on it, but I'd say some of them are in an effort to their donors, their donor constituents, that they're actually doing something. It's like, hey, you brought this issue to me. I proposed this bill. Like, hey, look, I'm doing something.
Sweet.
They know is probably going to fail, but I don't know. That's
or they think it's going to win, and they're going to do it because their donor told them to do it. Either one's
just a postulation.
Bullshit. It's probably not untrue, but that's stupid too. All right, so I'm a big donor.
It's done at the federal level. It's like, hey, look at this thing we're going to try to push through. Like, hey, look, we're fighting for you guys on this issue.
Whether you're doing it knowing it's going to fail or doing it because you actually want to get it done or it happens to not fail or whatever, it doesn't really matter. That's okay. So theoretically, we're posturing at least in the place that money gets action, and that's okay.
They're saying it's okay.
Well, I mean, that's an excuse on why they have so many things to do.
No, I'm saying that's why politicians feel beholden to actually give that illusion to some of those big money donors that they're trying to do something on their behalf. But
that goes that goes back into the wheel. Like I was joking with Scott just today. I was like, they have a power poll coming up. They do this thing. I don't know. I asked to be on the power poll, and they said they could get me in, but they haven't sent me an invite yet. And it's just a bunch of people. It's like a Victor Ashes and stuff, but from all over the state. And it's this third-party company that does these power polls. And so it's like politically active people. It's nonpartisan per se. It's just a bunch of people who are in politics, around politics. None of them are elected people, I think. But it's basically people who know what the fuck they're talking about when it comes to politics in the state of Tennessee.
Right.
So it's journalists from around the state, stuff like that. And so these different people pay the company to create these power polls. And if you pay into it to get the results of it, you can help formulate some of the questions. And so they were talking in the show today about sending out some power poll questions. And I was like, I'm not exactly sure how to ask this as a power poll question. But like the premise that I've gone on the school things, okay, so I was listening to Breaking Points today, and they do these collab shows every once in a while where they have a bunch of different contributors that they use that have their own podcasts or their own channels and stuff like that, and as a way to support them, as well as cover an interesting story that they don't have to do it themselves, they bring these people in and they run these bits. And they was talking about the A's moving from Oakland to Vegas. So it's very similar to our stadium talks in the last couple of years, right? The owner wants to move them there. He's trying to get all the money from the state of Nevada and Las Vegas to help him build the stadium and all this kind of shit, where the dude can flat out build the stadium on his own. It's not like he needs the money kind of bullshit, like that whole thing. And so one of the things in Nevada, not unsimilar to Tennessee, is schools are chronically underfunded. And that's one of these arguments that everybody has. And so they're talking about this weird relationship that grew out of Oakland area fans who don't want the A's to leave, and Nevada school teachers form this coalition, and they're trying to work together both in California and Nevada to try to keep this thing from happening. And one of the teachers is on there talking about it, and he's like a top level advocate for the school systems or whatever. I don't remember what his title was, but he's like, when it comes down to it, budgets are priorities. That's all it is. Forget about what they rhetorically tell you in their speeches are their priorities as the governor or as the mayor or whatever. When it comes down to budget time, that's when you know what their priorities are. And when a budget item as huge as a stadium project in Las Vegas gets a special session of the state Nevada legislature so that they can pass a bill funding this thing, when we don't have enough time during session to cover some school funding bills that we've been asking for, it's pretty clear what the priority is.
Yeah.
And so all that is to come back into this power poll thing is to say, or on the thing that I've said on the show before, is I don't believe that the voting public in Tennessee gives a shit about schools, because obviously we don't vote that way. Obviously it's not a priority of the people that we're voting in, because they continue to not budget for it. They continue not to treat it as a priority, and we continue to vote them in. So we don't care about schools. It's okay. If that's the truth, just be honest about it. It's this whole thing where if I asked you point blank, you'd be like, yeah, I care about schools. Well, no, you don't, because you don't vote that way. But, that whole thing. And so anyway, I asked the power poll question. It's like, well, and maybe they'll use it. I hope they will, because I think it'd be very interesting. Is the question I would like to know from politically impactful people around is like, how do you prioritize policy when voting? Like when you're looking at candidates and you're looking at it not in a party-only lens, how do you prioritize what's most important in a candidate? Because then I'm jokingly, because I'm like, I go through that whole thing and I tell them that, and I was like, that's the question I would put in the power poll. Because if you ask me that power poll question, my number one answer, how to get you a 0 on my gonna vote for you chart, is to tell me some bullshit. Come to my door and tell me you're going to fight immigration as the law director, right, and you're not getting my vote. Done. It's that easy. That's, if you want to make sure I don't vote for you, come to my door and tell me something really stupid. And that's my number one priority. Don't come talking to me about stuff you can't do. That's my number one priority. And I'd be curious to know what people think that, again, like I said, are politically active people. They're voters. They're party heads. They're all sorts of different people in and around and whatever. I don't know exactly who the list is, but I'd be curious to know how other people prioritize policy when they're making election decisions. Because I don't know that people do. I think people still vote that weird party thing we were talking about last week.
About
like their version of Republican. Not that that's the truth anymore. Because oh shit, it did this to me earlier. Nope. Okay. It did this to me earlier today, and it actually stopped recording when it did that pop.
I think I remember we talked about it before, but it's something I've been thinking a lot more about, and just kind of like the quote-unquote evolution of the GOP. And I'm like, has the Democratic Party had this to where you've really had these like greater factions and just calling out people, you're not a Republican, or you're a Republican in name only.
Dinos, and the Republican, I don't know. I mean, yeah, like in some ways, in different ways, shape, or form. Like, I mean, depending on who you ask, progressive is a pejorative.
Yeah.
Like certain people, they're like, fuck yeah, I'm a progressive. Other people are like, God, fuck those people. They're crazy. And even inside the Democratic Party, not even from the right, from the left.
But it seems like a little less vicious, I guess, in the Democratic Party as far as like progressives and the non-progressive Democrats.
I don't know. I have to think on it and go back in time. I'm sure there's functional versions of it. I mean, the problem...
Because I think you're seeing a lot more at the state level as well, as far as, infighting. There's something big going on in Michigan or Wisconsin with the the main state Republican Party. I'm trying to remember which one it is.
I probably heard about it.
But they were trying to change the state, the head of the RNC of the state. They had elections recently, and there was a whole big kerfuffle about whether one was the actual head of it. Because it came down to voting, they were trying to get rid of the old one, but there was a new one that just got installed and voted in. But then they were saying that vote was illegal because they did it outside of some kind of bullshit. And I'm just like, this is a lot of in-party fighting. I'm like, is this normal, or is this kind of new, or is it? We don't really hear about it as often. I
mean, I agree. I think we are at a particular place in the Republican Party with it. I mean, we had the Tea Party of old, which is not dissimilar functionally to what's going on right now. It wasn't as extreme per se as it currently is, but we had the Tea Party movement, which is still it's still on the Republican kind of faction-y side of things.
Yeah.
I don't know, but this is my problem with it. Like, I don't fucking care. Cool. You know, it's this to me, and I guess it's not a false narrative per se, but to me, and I'm going to argue this, I will argue this as the truth to death. It's like, it's not a false narrative for me to vote third party. I'm not voting for your opponent because I'm not voting for your guy. That's a false narrative to me. The only way we're going to get better candidates is to refuse to vote for shitty candidates. And if you're going to, if the two major parties are only going to give me shitty candidates, I'm not going to vote for them. And if a Republican's coming at me, it's like, well, a vote for Joe Kennedy is a vote for Joe Biden. It's like, well, give me somebody better than Trump and I might vote for your guy. But you're only giving me Trump, so fuck off. You know, that's my argument on that. It's like, you know, the inverse is the same thing. You know, a vote for Jill Stein is a vote for Trump. Give me somebody better than fucking Biden, and maybe I'll vote for him.
I was saying one of the most...
But you give me trash, what do you want me to do?
The more recent polls, and it was right around like low to mid-50s. I think it was not necessarily party specific, but it was like 55% of Republicans polled said, you know, they didn't want the Trump-Biden rematch, and, you know, slightly less, like maybe like 53%.
It's the greatest election that nobody wants in the history of time. Like, nobody wants this. Nobody except Joe Biden and Donald Trump. I mean, it's like Nikki Haley, as shitbag as she is, she would have beat Biden pretty handily, I think, had she had gotten the nomination.
Polls were leading that way, yeah.
You know, I mean, that's what the polling was saying. Not that the polling's ever particularly great in the accuracy or whatever. And I think, you know, shorter Kamala, I think anybody but Biden or Kamala would beat the fucking pants off of Trump right now. But
maybe, I don't know. They didn't field too many great candidates.
I mean,
or any really. Dean Phillips tried.
Did you see Kennedy? I was actually halfway through an episode and I didn't get to. They were just starting the segment on Kennedy. It
was VP possibilities.
Yeah.
I almost texted you to see if you saw
Aaron Rodgers. I knew Aaron Rodgers was on the list.
I was like, wait, what? Am I reading this right? I don't think I recognized the name of the other person that was floated as like the two possible.
There's a couple, yeah.
I don't think they said it was down to like just those two people, but I guess those were a couple names that he at least floated around.
You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor of California. Jesse Ventura was the governor of Minnesota.
Yeah.
Why can't Aaron Rodgers be the vice president? Why not? What's I mean, you know, obviously he has an not that this doesn't go well with the Kennedy campaign, but he has a unpopular view of the pandemic personally, I suppose. And that's problematic, I guess, but you know, just because he's an athlete that makes him unqualified. Just because he's never been in politics makes him unqualified. I don't know. I don't like. I'm all for crazy. Like I mean, I don't know who or what is the. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I don't know who I'm going to vote for, but I'm not sure. Like, I don't mind. Like, it doesn't bother me. Like, it doesn't make me more or less likely to vote for Kennedy if he's going to put. Like, I mean, Aaron Rodgers as his running mate doesn't move the needle one way or the other for me.
How many it would turn me off of it? It seems like my immediate thought is he's not taking it seriously. Like, is this just I mean, Trump picked Pence to get some more of the evangelical right.
Sure.
So I don't know if this is just to get more blue collar people.
I mean, I think is
this just a political play?
Well, no. I mean, I think there's two very specific demographics that you're going after if you're going to put Aaron Rodgers on your radar. One is already in Kennedy's wheelhouse. He's an anti-vaxxer. And Aaron Rodgers is very much in that camp with the whole thing, right?
He's never really admitted it. He's kind of tiptoed around it.
He's made the argument of why would I get a vaccine? I've already had the virus and I'm fine.
Right.
That was his thing. And he did the horse medicine bullshit, whatever thing, and everybody made fun of him for it and whatever. But he's fine. I guess he did break his ankle. Maybe he broke his ankle because of COVID in his first game and as a Jet. I don't know. But I mean, to me, you're going out like Sagar on Breaking Points. He has what he calls barstool Republicans, Barstool Republicans hate Trump. Barstool being Barstool Sports is kind of the reference. So the Portnoy crew and those kind of guys. And it's just like, it is a blue collar chase. It's, it's like sports fan dude bros that are out there, just normie dudes. They like their sports and beer. And they don't really care about the social bullshit that the Republican Party is pushing right now. They don't care about the anti-woke bullshit. They don't care about any of that. They want to see if there's anything policy-wise that they want to see. They want to see economic development. They want to see the stock market do well. They want to see that kind of shit. They want to be able to afford to go to their fucking football games. They want to have jobs that pay well enough that they can go to football games. That's the Barstool Republican. They're not Trump fans.
And Aaron Rodgers could do this for them as the all-powerful vice president.
I don't know, but I mean, just like Pence could do whatever as the vice president. I mean, it's a demographic target. It's a targeted pick to try to pull a demographic, and Aaron Rodgers fits that demographic pretty well. So yeah, I could see it being enough. I mean, enough to pull some of that demographic. Again, it's a fucking third-party candidate. It's not like he's really got a shot to win anyway. He's really just got a shot to make some noise and hopefully start a trend of real third-party candidates. And maybe we can get some real reasonable third-party candidates, but
I just kind of think it's sad to be like, hey, don't vote for me because you like me. Vote for me because of this other guy I'm going to bring with me.
I mean, that's what, but okay. So literally, you had Trump bring in Pence because it's like, y'all know I'm not a Christian. I don't give a fuck about your book and all that kind of shit. But I'm going to tow this guy along who loves your fucking book.
Right.
Right. Or you have Joe Biden who says, I'm going to tow the first black woman vice president along so that you could feel good about that for the demographics.
Right.
And so the third party guy is doing the same thing. I'm going to bring this guy along because he's an anti-vaxxer like me, and he likes sports.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's the same thing. I agree.
I'm not saying that I like the other ones. I'm saying
right.
that
I'm
it's
sorry. I do that.
shitty.
You're right.
But,
I'm sorry.
But thanks. Yeah.
No, you're right. I'm sorry. I do that. I keep doing that. And a couple weeks ago, I caught myself, and I apologize. I did it again. It's wrong if everybody does it. I guess not to belay your point, but that is what everything does, and it sucks. I agree. I agree. It sucks. It's stupid.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. I need to. I agree with you 100% on the point. And I need to stop playing the whataboutism game.
It's sad of someone. That's why I left it in the open phrase of vote for me. Don't vote for me because you like me. Vote for me because of the person I'm bringing with me.
Right. And it is sad. It's stupid. The only one that makes sense to me, and this is
elect me to have all the power because of somebody else.
Right. I mean, the Biden. I mean, all three of them are old enough that it's like, well, I might die. It's not like it would be crazy if I died in office. So it is kind of not. It's not important who this person is.
Yeah. Hey, you're getting closer and closer to winning your bet.
Not me.
I thought you said that he was going to survive.
AC was the one that said he'd survive. Max was the one that said he'd die or he'd leave office.
Oh, was that just between those two?
Yeah.
Okay,
I refuse to take that one.
Gotcha.
Because I know there's some high potency.
I said I'm not waiting 4 years to fucking try to cash in all this shit. Right. I'm like, fuck that.
Well, and
I'll take a bet, but I mean, not the long game, literally.
There's some high potency drug cocktails that are out there. And I think that was AC's little ace in the hole. He knows about that shit.
Oh, yeah.
He knows the right drugs you can keep somebody alive a little bit longer than they should be.
Yeah.
And cogent and whatnot. I mean, it sucks. It just sucks. The whole thing sucks. The whole premise and all the people involved, it sucks. That this, we're joking about the illusion of choice that this not voucher programs supposedly like they're playing this like, oh, you have all these choices game. Yeah, go vote. Talk about choices.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ. Like, it's fucking awful. Like, it's bad. Like, I mean, I don't know. I need to start getting my research. Like, I guess April 4th is deadline for the state and federal primaries.
I still really want to figure out I guess you'd have to look at like the census as far as, and just go off of like age bracket as far as people that would technically be eligible to vote. You wouldn't be able to find, felons or whatever. They'd still be on the census, but they wouldn't be able to technically vote.
Eligible, but not eligible.
Because what you can find on the state website is just percentage of registered voters that voted, which is, I actually thought it was like lower than it was. So I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, no, I think we're sitting at like 16 to like 20% of people that vote. I think that's general populace, but I think the state website had the last one was like 2022 elections, and that was, I think we were mid to upper 40s as far as registered voters versus actual voting.
So I mean, the number you're talking about, the bottom line, the denominator in the equation that you're looking at is eligible
voters, and not actually registered voters. What
Right.
you can find is registered voters. I guess what I focus more on is eligible voters, people
Right.
that have the ability to vote and just aren't registered and don't go vote.
I mean, it goes. I think you hit the nail on the head last week. It's this imposter syndrome bullshit that people carry around, and I don't disagree with them. Like, I don't know enough to weigh in that thing, and I don't necessarily disagree with that premise. But you could very easily know enough to weigh in. So take the 5 minutes to figure it out and then weigh in.
It's possible. I mean, in the grand scheme, I mean, for a lot of people, they're worried more about, like getting dinner cooked, making sure their kids' homework's done, making sure, they've got a project they're working on for work the next day, make sure that gets done.
Sure, absolutely. I'm not disagreeing with that. But I mean, the problem...
So they seem to, in their mind, that's not as important, but at the same time, things that they could be voting on could be very important.
Right, and the problem is that it's a chicken or the egg game. The resources...
What's more immediate focus versus
right, but the resources
potential
to make it immediately palatable are few and far between, and expensive. And so if I wanted to make the leap to get some information, I probably have to buy it, or it's going to take me longer because I got to watch ads to consume it. Because you're not getting. I mean. You're not getting it from News Sentinel. You're not getting from WBAR. You're not getting from NBC Nightly News. You're just not. Not a good picture of of what matters, especially in local voting. National voting is a little bit different. You get a decent. I'd argue it against it, but you could get. You just have to get like. I mean, the problem is, and I think this is the number one problem is that there is a lot. There is really a lot. And what's really lacking is the knowledge of who is responsible for what. And they don't tell you that on nightly news. When Bernie Sanders is talking about whatever, I don't know if that's in his wheelhouse as a senator. I assume it is because he's talking about it. That don't make it true. I.e., anybody that runs local races that runs on schools that I get pissed off about all the time.
Right.
Just because you're in the field, just because you hold said job and you talk about a thing, I mean, that's why I'm so adamant about like Matt Shear's stupid arguments. Like, well, they have a platform and that could help move the needle on X, Y, or Z. Fuck your platform, because what your platform by using your platform for a topic that isn't your job, you're muddying the waters of people being able to understand what your job actually is. If your job is to be a public speaker on behalf of, okay. But that's not your job. You're a county commissioner. Your job is to do X. Your job is to do land use and, oversight on this and approve the mayor's budget and that kind of stuff. That's your job. And when a county commissioner is going to talk about state level stuff, it's not. No, that's not okay. It's a lie at best, because whether they mean to or not, and they're human beings, they have a right to their opinion, obviously. But as a person holding an elected position, you need to be very careful about speaking publicly on things that aren't under your job description.
Yeah.
Because by doing so without being careful with it, you're implying that that's part of your job, and that makes it a campaignable thing, which makes it more confusing for people trying to follow. You're running like whether you meant to or not, you're running on a thing that you can't do anything about. And when you put that into the layers and layers of government and complex, county commission, city council, mayors, state legislators, state senators, governor, House rep, federal senator, all that stuff. And all of a sudden it's like, well, of these 9 people that I voted for, 12 people, 13 people that I voted for, which one actually does anything about this thing that I'm having a problem with? I don't know. So which one do I need to not vote for next time so that this problem doesn't continue because they keep letting it continue? I don't know. And so I don't know. I don't know how to fix that one, because and they don't teach it in school. Because I brought this down. This was my 5th grade. My 5th grader they have these little, I don't know, newspapers, print, like workbooks or whatever.
Huh.
And this was his U.S. Constitution then and now. I went through this whole thing. That much is on the Constitution.
What's the rest of it?
Voting Rights Act. Fighting for the right to vote, so abolitionists and stuff like that. Ida B. Wells.
Part of the Constitution. That's amendments.
Sure. Liberty Medal acceptance speech by Thurgood Marshall. I mean, I'm sure there's more stuff like that goes on around this than just this booklet. But literally, they're creating the Constitution. If this was all I knew, I would think that Sam Adams wrote the whole thing. I mean, that's literally, or I'm sorry, Madison wrote the whole thing.
Yeah, wrote a good chunk of it. I mean, he and Hamilton wrote the Federalist Papers, and a lot of those turned into portions of the Constitution.
But there was, what is it? Because Madison was a Federalist. He wanted a strong central federal government where...
I think so, yeah.
I'm blanking out on the other side of it, because there was the...
Jefferson, maybe.
Who was a statist? I don't know what the word is. I don't remember what the words are. That there's
right.
The state power.
I think it's like the Federalists and Anti-Federalists.
Right. So state power versus central power. And so, but if you, which I find kind of interesting, that a super majority Republican state legislature would use that as their constitution portion. I think I would figure if they're going to be like, Thomas Jefferson was, all about states' rights, and he wrote the Constitution with James Madison, and this, that, and the other, and about how states should be able to independently, manage their own people, and this, that, and the other.
I mean, did you actually read through it? Is that what the focus seems to be?
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
it's a page.
I didn't know if you glanced over it or if you actually read through it.
Okay, Creating the Constitution by
There's no need for you to read.
Benjamin Godfrey. Okay, Benjamin Godfrey. Excuse me. For his, Madison helped draft the Bill of Rights. This first 10 amendments. The Bill of Rights lists many key freedoms Americans enjoy today. These include freedom of the press, free speech. For all his work on the document and its first 10 amendments, James Madison has been called the father of the Constitution. Isn't 10 the one that defers to states? Isn't it the 10th Amendment that says if we don't explicitly put it in the Constitution that it's the states' rights?
Uno momento.
I believe it is. The 10th Amendment. Well, while you're looking that up, I'll just read the whole thing so you can learn it. Okay. According to the state of Tennessee, by Benjamin Godfrey. In the summer of 1787, representatives from all 13 states met in Philadelphia. They created the Constitution, the document that defines the roles and responsibilities of the United States government. This revolutionary document has considerable historical importance for the United States and the world. The Constitution outlined a set of laws for running the government that were established by the people themselves. Over the years, these rights and freedoms listed in the U.S. Constitution have had a great impact on the world. In 1987, 200 years after the Constitution was written, Time magazine calculated that of the 170 countries that exist today, more than 160 have written charters modeled directly off the U.S. Constitution. Paragraph 2. How did this world-shaking document come to be? In 1787, James Madison and 56 other delegates or representatives held a series of meetings called a Constitutional Convention. Their goal was to reform the government created after the Revolutionary War. Madison had previously created the state constitution of Virginia. The delegates were interested in his ideas. Madison became the principal writer or framer of the Constitution. Madison argued for a strong central government. At this time, the states had a lot of power to govern themselves. This made it hard for national government to collect taxes or establish a military. To solve this problem, Madison looked to the democratic republics of ancient Greece and Rome, and the Haudenosaunee, I don't know how to say that, Confederacy, a group of Native Americans nations that had united and established their own constitution, the Great Law of Peace. After months of debate and compromise, the delegates decided on the final document. They mostly followed Madison's Virginia plan, and established a stronger federal government. To gain public support for the plan, Madison and some other people went around, and then I already read the last chapter.
It's the 10th Amendment.
That's what I said. I was right. Yay.
Did you say 10th?
I did say 10th.
Okay. Hell yeah.
So he included in there too that if it's not explicitly in this document, it's the state's rights to figure it out.
The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people.
I can't think of a better way to transition than being right. I remembered a thing.
Yeah, got a couple of interesting sports stories. English Women's League showdown delayed by teams wearing matching socks.
I mean, okay. I mean, it's soccer. That makes sense.
Yeah. Shit's on television. Can't be.
Did you see the Wimbledon story?
That was actually one of these
about
as
the
well.
beehive? Is that the?
Yeah, bee cause a buzz and lengthy disruption. Oh, you want to see if there's any good puns in here?
Oh, Jesus. I mean, the thing about it. Okay, so who's the author? Because if you're at the top, let's call this guy out for his incessant need to pun everything.
This particular one was Carlos Alvarez.
All right, well, Carlos
Alcaraz. Sorry, Alcaraz.
Carlos, if you are writing all of these, just chill out.
I doubt that.
Just chill out, man. That's all I'm saying. Like,
they've got a plethora of people that are
a couple of good ones, and then let it go. You don't have to do a pun every sentence or two. Like you can space them out a little bit. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, bees at Wimbledon.
Let's see here. I was trying to see if there's any good
bees.
See. I don't know. Maybe that was one of the people that were playing.
Yes, he ended up.
Yeah, Alexander. So Carlos Alcaraz and Alexander Zverev. Yeah,
not the top tier of the golf world or tennis world, but
yeah, I don't think it says who. Well, it's probably down at the bottom.
Anyway,
see,
like it was in the fucking camera.
Swatted the bees buzzing around him before running to cover, and the match was suspended 19 minutes. And with Alcaraz serving tied at 1-1, the Spaniard went on to win.
Wait, go read the first sentence again.
Swatted the bees buzzing around him.
Okay.
Before running for cover.
Okay, because the NBC Nightly News, when they covered it, they threw a pseudo pun in there where there's like, instead of swatting at balls, he was swatting at bees before he ran into the locker room.
Yeah. That's a pretty general term of waving your hand at something. I'd say you're swatting it away.
I know, but the whole idea is you're swatting tennis balls with your racket.
Yeah, no. I would never call a. All right, well.
I mean, if you were an alien from another galaxy and you came to Earth and you saw a fly swatter and a tennis racket on the table, the action, motion, whatever you want to call it, that you would swing that thing with, or that you would use that thing to, I would think would be a swing, or a swing or a swat would work either way.
Swing, yeah.
Yeah, I think you could swing.
I wouldn't call it a
swat.
I wouldn't call it a swat.
I mean, what do you like? I don't know. I swat bugs out of the air. I swat the ball out of the air. Yeah, that works. I think it works. Anyway, doesn't matter.
See, apparently, the other guy joked that he was fine to play on his side of the court.
Apparently, like it was
I guess he used like a vacuum to start getting some of them out.
Yeah, it was in the camera. Like they had like one of the wire cams that were overhead, and like the dude came like real gangster move by the groundskeeper. He was out there with the shop vac and no protective gear.
The bee vacuumer was summoned back to the court with a spray bottle and was cheered wildly by the crowd.
Yeah, there was people stopping him.
He posed for selfies, yeah. His fans, causing the two players to laugh as they watched him wander the seats, spraying for bees.
I just I don't know. It's so funny. But the idea that it was in the camera is the craziest to me. It's like, how to get in the camera in the first place?
Actually, I don't think there was any puns in that one.
Bummer. All right. You got one more? Anything else?
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know if you heard about this one. It was
last one. No, last one. That's the last one?
No, so you have to do the theme song again.
I mean, I like to stick it in there as many times as I can. Oh!
Jaromir Jagr is missing. Well, the bobbleheads of the former NHL star are anyway.
He suited up. He went and did pregame with him.
I already posted that. Like, had it like seatbelt in, or seatbelted like into his the car. He's going to drive around and go find him. He's on the case. Apparently,
really? That's funny.
Apparently, Gritty, the Flyers mascot, made some like Game of Thrones pun. I can't remember what exactly he'd said on there.
Jagr is a legend among legends.
See, I would have thought they would did the bobbleheads for when they recognized him like a week or two ago.
Maybe they weren't produced in time, and they just did it a couple weeks later.
I think they had that planned decently enough, like out.
Yeah, I don't know.
Did you see the joke he made for the night that he was going out there?
He's ready to play. He could get on there. He could play today.
No, he made a joke about his really young girlfriend. It's like she doesn't remember. She wasn't born when I was playing, but I've told her some stories about me playing. Like it's like, oh damn, she's just trying to jovially kind of laugh it off, because I think she was standing like next to his mom or some shit,
which could be like her grandma, probably.
Yeah.
Damn.
Like she wasn't born when I was playing, but I've told her some stories about me playing.
He's from Czech. He's Czech.
Yeah, I think he's Czech. He may have, I think he's. Oh no, he may have been born in like Czechoslovakia,
probably
before it was split.
I don't think so. But I know he's Czech side because he played for Czech, and I miss that. They need to bring that back. I hate that. I want them back in the Olympics.
I think they're doing it next year.
Are they?
I think they agreed they were going to start doing it, or having some kind of No, they're going to do a tournament next year, but it's going to be U.S., Canada, Finland, Sweden, maybe.
I mean, Russia's not invited, duh.
But I think they're also going back to the Olympics, possibly.
Good, they need to. I mean, they really do. It just, I don't know.
They were talking about that with like McDavid or some big star that like they've never had a chance to like win a medal, because one of the last times they did an international tournament, it was North America versus like Europe versus whatever. So he got lumped in. There wasn't a Team Canada or Team US. It was like Team North America.
I mean, it's pretty much Team Canada. Come on now. There's not that many Americans.
There's a handful. There's
a handful, but there's not a ton, but that's funny.
Did you see for Yager's jersey retirement that like everyone had mullet wigs, and
they wore the 68 on it. They all wore
And he got out there, and he was out there like kind of warming up with them.
He went out and
I mean, he still plays with the team he owns,
but still, I mean,
right?
I don't know. What's he, like 60?
53 or something.
He's not that old.
But
he's old to play professional hockey. Don't get me wrong, but he's not old enough to go out there and play a senior league and be all right.
Yeah.
Which I would say some, random Czech team, probably not all that.
Apparently the team itself is kind of struggling. That was also one of the reasons, like, hey, he has a financial stake in it. Right.
But I'm just saying, like, I think Yager could play for the Ice Bears and be good. You know what I'm saying?
Probably.
Those kids aren't, I mean, they're better than I am, but they're not like,
right.
They're not at that level. And him, though, like comparative being like what's his face is fighting Tyson. Did you see that story?
Yeah.
I mean, like it's like what's
is it going to be a real boxing match?
Not really.
Okay.
Apparently the rules got leaked, and they're kind of a joke, and they're not really going to beat each other up that much.
So it's just a big promo gig.
I mean,
I saw that somebody.
They'll both make millions and millions of dollars off it. I can't blame them for it.
That's what I'm saying. A big promo gig.
Yeah.
I saw some big sponsor had signed on to like have their logo on the mat or whatever.
Yeah.
Can't remember who it was, but
I mean, it's like the kid. One of the kids brought it. The kids were brought up when we were picking up the middle schoolers. We were talking about Jake Paul.
Yeah.
And it's like like my gut reaction is like Tyson. Like if it was a real fight, Tyson would murder that guy. That was my immediate gut reaction. And then I was like, you know what? I mean, Tyson's a monster. He's still a monster. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah.
But he's also 60. And Jake Paul's not a boxer. He knows how to box. He's nowhere near where Tyson was when Tyson was in his prime or anything like that. Like he's not that good a boxer. If he was doing real boxing matches with real contender boxers and stuff like that, he probably's not going to have a great record or anything like that. But he can get out there and he can box. He knows how to do the sport. Because it is a sport. It is a skill. It is a very defined skill set, boxing.
I just love when you're seeing a ass kick. Like, let me hug you for a second.
Yeah, but that's part of the game, and that's like that's the thing about
when
boxing.
I'm hugging you can't hit me,
right? But there's strategies in that stuff, and like you have different boxers that you do different things to, and it's like that's Jake Paul and his team knows what they're doing, but he himself is a skilled boxer. Like he would murder me or anybody I know who doesn't know how to box in a boxing match.
Has he been doing that much training? I thought like one of the last big fights they were making a big joke about how he had like next to no training, but I don't know much about it.
My understanding of it is like he's actually again, if he wasn't a celebrity for his YouTube, whatever the fuck he is a celebrity for, and he was actually a professional boxer, he'd be a middle of the pack guy. He'd make a living off it, but he wouldn't do well.
Really?
That's what, that's the couple of like people that are into boxing that I've listened to that have talked about it. Like, yeah, he's good. He's not great. Like, he wouldn't be getting these matchups if he wasn't famous already. That's kind of the way to put it. Like, obviously the Mayweather one was a complete whatever, and like he's boxing a bunch of guys that are like MMA guys that aren't specialists in boxing, and so it makes sense that he could outbox somebody that doesn't know how to box that well. Because he's fought a couple of different MMA guys.
It's like, oh, you specialize in jiu-jitsu? Okay, let's box.
Let's do that. You can't rip my head off, so right. I win. And so, but they're not, and even in that, and in the rule versions that they're doing, they're not real boxing rules, and so they're making sure that he probably has a better shot than he does. But he knows what he's doing is the moral of the story. And it's like the more I was saying about it, even if it was a real boxing match, it'd
be hilarious if he gets to wear like one of those padded like boxing helmets.
I think Tyson,
like he's gonna knock me out if I don't.
I think he might actually, like, if it was real. I think he could hold his own. I don't know if he'd win or lose.
Think so.
Like,
I mean, I don't know what their weight compared, but I mean, last time I saw Tyson, he was still pretty big.
I think it's 220.
Still like big and cut.
Yeah, but he's still 60.
All right, he's been smoking a lot of weed too.
A lot of weed, and selling a lot of weed, and doing a lot of other stuff that isn't boxing. And like his, if you want to hear it, like him on Rogan was super interesting. Because that's before he'd gotten back into shape. He was just doing his weed farm and shit like that. And like he was telling Rogan, he's like, I don't mess around in the gym, man. If I go in the gym and start messing around, I'm scared I'm going to get back in. And I'm not going to be able to leave. He's like, I can't help myself. Like once I get rolling, I have to become a murderer again.
Right. And
I don't want to do it. And shortly after that, he got back in the gym, and now he's fucking good. I think he could kill Jake Paul if he wanted to.
He's like, yeah, okay, I want to fight somebody.
Right. And so I don't know. I don't know. I mean, and goddamn, that man's got some sense of humor. His gummies are the funniest thing on the fucking planet. Have you seen them?
No.
His Colorado.
Oh, it's his ear or whatever.
Yeah, it's a fucking ear with a bite taken out of it. Those are his gummies. You get some Tyson super high potency THC gummies, and it's an ear with a bite already taken out of it. That's fucking hilarious. And apparently Holyfield thinks it's funny too.
That shit's so crazy to think back. Yeah, it's like you bit a motherfucker's ear.
That's how much. But that's what that's what he was saying. He's like, that he is a fucking killer. He can't help himself. Like that's how ridiculous it was in his mind. He is just making sure he wins. Like, it's so crazy. It's so crazy.
If I can't beat you, I'll bite you.
Yeah, it's like I'm not going to lose. I'll get disqualified, but I'm not. You're not going to knock me out.
But you still technically lose by disqualification.
Yeah, but you're not. You didn't outfight me. You won
still
on
goes
technicality.
Down as an L.
Sure, but it's still not. You still didn't knock me out. You didn't outbox me. I cheated and I got kicked out. That's that's still a win in the murderer mind, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
I guess. I mean, it's only slightly less worse than just like punching a guy in the balls and like, all right, you're out of here.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like, I didn't win, and I got my shots in.
But here's the moral of the story is we're talking about it right now, and I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know, pay-per-view for $50, $60?
Hell no.
Why not?
Not for me.
I mean, you get a couple people.
I'll watch some highlights. That's it.
I mean, if it's anything like most Tyson fights, there is only one highlight, and that's the first 30 seconds, and the fight's over anyway.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know. Like again, that's the point. Like there's no value in it as a fight or anything. It's just the spectacle. And I guess I'm a sucker because I kind of want to see the spectacle. Anywho, last call. Anything else? Nah. All right, we did a show, everybody. Taking bets. Email me at almostagreement@gmail.com and tell me who you think's going to win, Jake Paul or Mike Tyson. Or is this the Games of Rome thing? Oh, happy Ides of March, by the way. Is this the bread and circus? Is that what's going on here? Is this the bread and circus? We're watching Jake Paul and Tyson fight while Rome burns in the background while we election stuff. Anyway, we're Almost Agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com, check out all the cool stuff we got on there. There's a link to hollaroo.co, happyhollerfest.com, hollaroo.co. Register to race a derby car down Central with us on April 13th. If you're a vendor of some sort, you can sign up and vend it. We're going to have a giant street fair, and we got a pretty cool rock and roll concert. Dishwater Blonde, if you're familiar, is headlining this jam-packed festival day thing that we're doing. So come check it out. Check out the website. Stop by Happy Holler and see all the cool stuff that the businesses are doing, which I own one of them, and I need the money to support my podcast habit. Anyway, Almost Agreement, everybody. Thanks for listening. Bye.